That's
there is
fine.
an
On the
impact.
counterclaim, has the UN program done by the DOS and the DoD ever been done in Saudi Arabia?
I'm not sure about that, but you also have to prove why this harmonization suddenly solves for Saudi Arabia ending all of their human rights violations.
So if this program has never been done in this region, then why do we have any reason to believe that
Well,
it's probably not going to work?
Well, see, our GAO 11 evidence says that all EUM fails in the Middle East. We've seen this before, but I don't know about the
all of the EUM
harmonization.
programs that are in the status quo, aka not the DOS and the DoD working together. Do you have any evidence that says the DoD and the DOS working together fails in the Middle East every single time?
Right, no, but the argument is that Saudi Arabia won't end their arms sales just because you're monitoring them. It doesn't matter if you harmonize the DoD and the DOS.
Alright, that's fine. On to the 2020 decide.
Sure.
Why does Trump win the 2020 election if Saudi Arabia's arms sales are what is decking his base now?
No, what we're saying right now is that our argument is that Trump is actually winning right now. He has a consistent base support and an upward trending approval, but the plan would cause Trump to lose because it helps the Democrats.
But doesn't the Fox News 612 evidence say that he's already winning or losing to common people like Sanders and Biden?
Right, but our Vitter and Lind evidence says that it doesn't. So.
Alright, that's fine.
Cool.
On to the K page.
Alright.
Why exactly is condo bad?
Right, we say condo is bad, but dispositionality is better. Condo is bad because
So did you
assume
ever actually
different
read
roles.
a interpretation in the speech?
We did not read a counter interpretation, but I assume we can still say that in cross-text?
I mean, I would.
Okay, yeah, dispositionality is better. That's our counter interpretation.
Alright, and why is there, or I guess okay, why is instability escalated by the United States arms sales?
Right, instability is escalating with the United States arms deal because you're basically giving them the tools to commit human rights violations.
And why is scenario planning good if we can never actually debate the implications of the policies?
What do you mean?
Like, your 1AC framework is saying that we have to prioritize scenario planning. Why is that good if we never understand the way that policies become into the status quo and the way that they operate with other sanctions?
That's what scenario planning is. You determine what will happen and actually considering what will happen when the plan is passed. What your K argument is that we should be talking about the right kind of security instead of talking about AFBR. Do you want me to answer?
No, why would you?
Okay, I don't want to answer this one.
If they want to take prep time for your answer, then
okay.
Otherwise, don't give them any free answers. No free lunches around here. You have a lot of good questions to start, but then you just let her off the hook time in and time out. I don't understand why. What's happening there? Did you feel, okay, let me ask you a better question. Were you satisfied with most of her answers?
No.
If you're not satisfied,
Well,
why?
I don't want to be that person that just keeps re-asking the same
What person?
question.
It wasn't the same question. She answered. A lot of her answers were booty, and you were like, "I guess these booty answers are what we're going with." Well, don't do that.
Right.
You got to be like, no, that's a terrible answer.
I don't know, because I feel like then that reflects speaker points and stuff. You know what I mean? No, you don't know what I mean. Maybe you know what I mean. No. Okay.
And do you need me here for this conversation? Yes, I know what you mean. But that's no reason to let her get away with murder in these questions. Let me ask you a question. What question did you ask her that you felt unsatisfied with her answer?
The one about how the DOS and the DoD has ever operated in Saudi Arabia.
And she's like, what was her answer? I actually think her answer was okay on this question. But her answer on this question was that it doesn't matter if the DoD and the DOS work together. The question is whether or not Saudi Arabia will stop selling arms. They won't. I actually think that was one of the better answers she gave in cross-ex. Otherwise, I thought on questions like scenario planning, why is scenario planning bad? What did she say to that? Did you ask that question?
No, I asked her what scenario planning was good.
That's what I meant. Why is scenario planning good?
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
She just reworded what she tried not to say.
Which was what? What did she say?
I didn't get an answer from it. I don't know.
There you go. I said bad, I meant good. Why is scenario planning good?
Couldn't tell you.
That's what they're going to go for. If you go for the K, that's what they're going for. And you don't really have an answer to this argument. So pressing a little further than just letting her off the hook sometimes is a good thing. It's okay to press her some. You don't have to ask the same question over and over, but you should ask a question till you get something that resembles an answer. And some of this is judge dependent, right? Like, I don't care if you bully her in cross-ex. It doesn't make me feel bad. I'm okay with that. Other people won't feel nearly the way that I do, but getting an answer out of somebody in cross-ex is important. Don't let them waste your cross-ex time. You taking prep?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Are you sure? Yes, they did. Look right here. Right here.
Is that recording?
I'm
Yeah,
sure
I hope not.
I really
hope not.
I just said a couple of things that I hope are not on my camera. Sexy me. She's mad about something. Alright, she's prepped. We got 5 minutes. I'll send it out.
so the order is going to be the disad, the CP, and the case. So I'm not ready.
Elections, counterplan,
Case.
in what order?
That order. Disad, counterclaim, case.
There are like 3 advantages to the case. You're only going
Oh,
to
yeah,
one, or
sorry.
you're going
Just,
all 3.
It's just one.
What's
two-
happening there?
1, 2, and 3.
So case in order.
Yeah.
That's what we say in these situations.
Yeah.
You're going to case in order.
Yes.
All right then. Lay it on me.
Alright. First on the politics, this had Dems win now, but doing the plan reverses this is a major problem because then Trump gets elected again and human rights abuses can keep on happening. They exasperate this turns their case because if Trump gets it back into office and everything will just start happening again, it doesn't matter if they stop arms sales to Saudi Arabia. First on the uniqueness debate, they say non-unique, but that's not true. That victory now, Trump's low approval means uniqueness can only go one way. Yeglis 612. Trump's in trouble for re-election. All plausible contenders at this moment can take heart in the fact that just 40 to 42% of the population feel like voting for Trump. He's unpopular. That doesn't look like it's nearly enough for people to win. This is the status quo right now. And now let's get on to the link debate. First, the Afghan pass is a big win for Trump because of stopping arms sales to Saudi Arabia are unpopular. So even if Trump doesn't want to end sales, they'll still give him all the credit and propel him to the 2022 elections. And secondly, our dissent turns the case because if Trump gets elected again, he just keeps up human rights abuses and find other ways to get arms to Saudi Arabia, which exacerbate the crisis in Yemen. And next they say link term, but this isn't true though. Again, they'll just pin it on Trump. This plan doesn't help the Democrats at all. And next onto the Saudi arms sales are massively unpopular. Shez Green, 2019. The Trump administration will push through $8.1 billion to move from prompted fierce criticism. The U.S. office says Saudi Arabia became particularly controversial in Congress and the American public object to selling these bombs to Saudi. Now onto the impact debate. First, extends Star 19 and Klein 17. Trump gets major win because the app is bipartisan and Trump gets the credit for the plan. This means he secures the win 2020 election and prior questions of climate change are pushed to the bottom, which with the problem climate change being avoided, we will eventually move towards extinction. And next, claims of climate change are all hype. A Trump presidency dooms the climate wrong 2019. Trump has led the most anti-climate and anti-clean energy in U.S. history. Trump's 2020 campaign strategy will seemingly involve non-existent climate change victory, carbon pollution for utilities and other industrial resources spiked 3.4% in 2018. Carbon dioxide emissions are much higher than Trump took all this other thing from the administration is currently doing. Emissions will not decline sharply, and the plan persuades the public that Trump has climate change victories to claim, but is built on a foundation of smokes and lies. His answers their extinction requirements. Their extinction requirements, adaptation. We've never seen climate change. Climate change is at its worst right now. We've never seen all of their evidence is indicative of other things that we will adapt to. But that's not true. This is the worst type of climate change that we're experiencing right now. This is why the affirmative can't solve for the dissent is a major problem. Now go on to the CP. First on the condo argument and her interpretation, the NEA has multiple conditional advocacy standards. First, real-world decision-making policymakers are bound to one option if they see there are other better ones. Conditional arguments are also key to testing desirability of the app. If I can't kick out an argument, I'm deterred from running because the opportunity cost, meaning we can never get the education to find the best policy option the way that policymakers offer multiple options, but end up only voting for one of them. And this is also key to fairness because arguments aren't grounded in the real world, unpredictable as they are fundamentally different, giving me a disadvantage by forcing me to run something that my everyday experience contradicts. And secondly, critical thinking. This first critical thinking because the app has to create the optimal strategy compensate for any conditional arguments. This goes to role debate. And third, depth of discussion, allowing next to kick one or more of the arguments allows an in-depth discussion about the other sides, which is more educational discussion to have because it probably involves the best alternative policy option to the advocacy. Depth of the discussion in general is key to education because the only way we learn about debate rounds is by exploring the issues over which we debate. And fourth, breadth of research, allowing next to run conditional arguments encourages next to run more diverse arguments as there are no risk, and these are voted for fairness in education. Now let's move on to the perm. They don't do enough work on the perm to give them access to this argument. There's two reasons. First, doing the app wrecks U.S. relations with the Middle East. Saudi is the biggest importer of our arms and key to influence. Their perm fails. The CP still gets the access that we just implemented ELM system in Saudi Arabia while still being able to look over the Middle East as well. You can group together. Now onto the solvency argument. The CP solves the entirety out better and will voice the net benefit. Their evidence isn't ever conclusive. First, group together the all EUM fails in the Middle East, and the EUM is too inefficient. And their evidence is way too outdated. Make their evidence of the status quo make them read evidence saying that the DoD and the DOS is specifically a failure. They never read any of this evidence. All of this is in context of the old EUM, which has historically failed, but the new EUM program will work better because again, the DoD and the DOS are making sure that people in Saudi Arabia aren't losing track of these arms, and it's a deterrent strategies for other countries as well because they're too scared they're too scared to do anything. And onto the CP solves better than the AF. EUM reform solves terrorism. Amberson, 2018. The Trump administration should build in transparency process changes that make it possible to assess whether U.S. arms exports are meeting the stated goals and public accounting and evaluation of trading might go along with arms sales is desperately needed under current procedure. Trump is notified, Congress is notified of potential major arms sales, whether through foreign military sales or via direct commercial sales. If the administration wants to make it easier for companies to negotiate their arms sales, it should also improve transparency to them and use monitoring to provide information on the number of specific weapons involved. Without these specifics, it becomes more difficult to not only assess the policy changes, but to further goals such as combating illicit trafficking and weapon flow to terrorists and strengthening EUM shorts of failures and monitoring the status quo. This Middle East specific Congressional Research Service 2017. Challenges of accounting of U.S. arms have grown. The Army did not have effective controls to track equipment transfers. Any monitoring important of ensuring that the recipient governments like the Middle East adhere to human rights standards. Greater coordination between the Department of State and Department of States and Defense establish procedures for documenting and use monitoring efforts in violation thereof. This solves for the case better because one, we solve for their terrorism. We solve for their Mideast instability advantage because again, the EUM implementing EUM has control. Is it a good deterrent strategy for the entirety of the Middle East because they're too scared to go to have conflicts with the United States over where United States arms went. This is uniquely. This is again why the CP is better, but also extend the solvency evidence. We're just talking about how the DoD and the DOS is uniquely key because again, it's a deterrent strategy, but also staying within Saudi Arabia means that we have a lot of influence because again, Saudi Arabia is the biggest importer of our arms. Also, now onto case. First, extend the term. This was the Heinrich's evidence that states the U.S. relations with Saudi are the only way we can push them towards human rights correction. The CP resolves this and avoids the hedges that cross by the CP work I did here. Not the hedges, the politics that cross by the CP work I did here. The AF reverses growing good relations with the Middle East. This is bad. And secondly, none of their evidence in the 1AC is very conclusive. The Everett card never has a line that states why Congress checks are uniquely key. They can be just as rash. Their only answer to this was common sense, but that doesn't solve war. Griner 10 evidence says that Congress is more likely to go to war if they're establishing foreign policy if they reestablish foreign policy precedents because it decimates the executive branch control of the military, which they've always had control of. You can extend that argument here. Next, they say that and the ending emergency exception is uniquely key, but this emergency exception isn't uniquely key. Trump has other avenues to go in order to give arms to Saudi Arabia. Going through the affirmative doesn't actually solve anything. If the president still has can still declare emergency exceptions specifically, they're giving arms sales to other countries. And next, the next advantage, they say that instability. They say that all of our arguments are in context of Yemen, but none of their evidence, but only a few pieces of their evidence are in context of Yemen. And even if it's those evidence, it's not the arguments that they're extending here. Next, they say that U.S. arms are uniquely key to destabilizing Yemen, but instabilities. But instability right now is because the United States doesn't hold them accountable. That's why the CP solves better. Next on to this Rogan card, you can go ahead and concede it. We'll go instead for the multiple all causes and there's no impact to instability. There's no impact to instability. Then there's no reason to pass the after. If there's no impact to instability, there's no reason to pass the after. The impacts will never happen. They never warrant out why their impacts actually happen. In fact, they don't. I don't even think they extend any of their impacts. All they say on this argument is that it's just defensive, so you should vote on it. But that isn't enough reason. If we prove to you the impact doesn't happen, then it doesn't. Then you don't have to vote for the affirmative at all. Next, let's go on to the third argument again. Again, vote for the CP because if we pull out, because if we leave the Saudi Arabia, then Trump will just get reelected. This is uniquely bad because more human rights will happen again. This turns their whole entire case.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Cool. So what does the counter plan do after you find out that Saudi Arabia is committing human rights violations?
Sure. So what we say is that, sorry. what we say is that by implementing the strategies, actually deterrence from Saudi Arabia, like implementing these strategies, like the affirmative doesn't have a check on human rights in the way that EUM does, because we go through 2 different systems that check for Saudi Arabia and don't actually.
Okay, so what do you do after you check them?
What do you mean?
When you find out they have human rights violations, what do you do? Do you stop arms sales?
Well, the CP doesn't cover that, but I just assume that like obviously we like.
Didn't you concede that the counter plan was a prerequisite to the AF?
What do you mean?
In cross-sex, last cross-sex. Anyway, so why does the perm fail?
Sure, the perm fails because one, it still links to the disad, right? Like, if we still stop arms sales to Saudi Arabia, that boosted Trump to the elections because, like, even if he doesn't want to end arms sales, the public will just pin it on him that he, like, did this right.
Okay, moving on to the elections, DA. You say that stopping arms sales are unpopular, but how is this true if Trump was forced to use the emergency provision to veto that to continue selling arms?
Yeah, like, stopping arms sales are unpopular. That's why Trump had to use this veto. Right? That's why, like, if we go through with the app, that propels Trump because the public will just pin it on him that he was the one that, like, stopped arms sales. He becomes popular again, gets back to the elections.
So Trump is stopping arms sales now?
Well, what we're saying is that even if the app passing is the reason why arms sales stopped going to Saudi Arabia, right? And so, like, if that happens, then the public will just pin that on Trump, even if he doesn't want to.
Okay, does Trump want to sell arms to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, but that's not the point. Like, they'll just pin it on him, even if, like, he, like, does
Okay,
want
and
to
then
sell arms.
you stated that if Trump gets elected, then he keeps up our human rights abuses. But what human rights abuses have Trump committed? Like, in terms of
Okay,
policy?
sure, so you can, like, go ahead and, like, your whole entire, like, third advantage in the 1AC talks about human rights credibility and how Trump has been the unique reason why this has, completely decimated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyway. You say that Saudi arms sales are unpopular, but how does this contribute, like the AF passing, how does that contribute to Trump winning the election?
Okay, I'll say it again, but Trump doesn't want arms to go to Saudi Arabia, but that doesn't matter if the affirmative passes, right? Because, like, the public sees it unpopular, so public doesn't want arms to go to Saudi Arabia, and then the affirmative allows for Trump to, like, not get these arms to Saudi Arabia. So the public would just assume that Trump was the reason for this, and they'll, like,
okay, thank you.
give him
On to the oversight advantage. Why is the executive better to check for war? Like, why is Congress more likely to go to war than the executive?
Okay, so that was the evidence in the 1NC talking about how, like, Congress, because, like, it has never had influence over the military the way the executive branch does, then, like, it mishandles the use of the military, which is, like, worse than, like, just the executive branch having control of it.
Okay.
Huh? Oh.
We're just going to read up your tea. And there's going to be an overview on the top, and then framework, and then K proper.
You know very well who you are.
Is anybody not ready?
I don't have it yet.
I didn't send it.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm sending the one card.
Oh, okay.
My bad. Forgot that I'm reading that.
I'm so offended by that UCO debate sticker. It drives me insane.
Why?
What's wrong with it?
Because fuck UCO.
Wow.
Was I not clear enough the first time I noticed it?
There's some backstory on that.
No, just no. You don't get to come to our camp and promote your school. I'm against it.
I think that's exactly what happened.
That is what happened. And we paid him to do it.
That is tough.
You ready?
Yeah, I can read it. It's just the one card. It's in the text.
Yep, got it.
Is anybody not ready?
Are you ready?
Oh, just kidding. No.
I didn't hear them say yes, so I was asking.
I didn't get it.
I didn't hear them say yes. You asked, people didn't answer, and you just started talking.
Oh, I stop asking now.
Or you could just wait for
Wait,
answers.
is it the copy and paste, the one you copy and pasted?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I got it. I'm ready.
Everybody good this time?
Yes.
First of all, your arguments at the the best way we can structure policies based on the understanding of epistemology claims in the 1AC that things like Saudi Arabia arms deals are the tendencies of the United States, which is knowledge production behind the 1AC means that there is always a threat and we can operate in the 1AC security logic when we eventually lead to this position of dependent policy making to the affirmative to drive a hegemony, and they can only, which is based on the multiple securitization protection. If we can't lead, their epistemology always leads to war. Their impact of framing like our security risk is important because we are wise, or because they are wise. Security logic only provides the idea of war in the affirmative case is the based off security, which is to investigate the underlying knowledge that drives the affirmative networks and to gain contextual knowledge resources. We saw the linear dishad. We outweigh for two reasons. First, time frame. Their offense gets worse over time. The battle represents a change in uniqueness. Probability. Prefer high probability impacts because this is the act is based on the long skew of internal links, and we provide change now onto the framework debate. First, extend our interpretation. Our interpretation is that the epistemology claims that policy making comes first. Reasons to prefer: 1. Plan focus is key because it's good to rethink security logic and the epistemology behind the 1AC. 2. The state is valuable the state is not valuable to learn about because when you learn about the state and the flawed logic that they operated, it only leads to even bigger consequences. We never get to rethink security rhetoric if we're only living in it. And third, we don't mute third, weighing the impacts of the African decay are affected because we solve the flawed security logic that the state operates in. Onto the util bad arguments. First, their mentality sacrifices anything and everything to provide and always an alternative to war. That's their ontological flaws. Second, it justifies the U.S. bombing other countries in order to make American feel good. And third, util bad because it justifies killing the even smallest number of people in hope for the greater endpoint. Their security logic turns people into numbers instead of having a valued life. Onto state bad. First, their flawed logic never gets reconstructed in the interpretation of the state, and reject their fiat arguments because the only way that we can ever properly understand weighing the impacts of the Africans decay is by understanding how they actually operate. And representation is good because it's a prior ethical question. Political reference and framing is understanding of political reality. This takes out their fiat good arguments. Hints 91. Definition of required language or reality and expresses the language of people enclosed in themselves in the world, and having political rhetoric creates political reliability. Political thought in the action, national identity, simulate people into the act. Create political consequences, define political setting, create national security, and identify the stimulating the sense of political reality. Cut card there. Reality, and onto the line by line of the link evidence. First, they say no link, but their own evidence refers to the security logic which we are critiquing. 1. We position ontology as a real threat. We can never focus on the ontology because their flawed logic never allows us to rethink what we know or how we've come to know. History checks this. Our ontology behind colored people makes them always a threat to white bodies. Second, our evidence is dependent on their evidence is dependent on going to war. We have to rethink the ideology of challenging security rhetoric and ontology to be able to provide framing for security. And security logic provides us understanding of how we come to know the 1AC's offense. And third, the link precludes solvency. We can't ever solve the impacts of the security logic because the 1AC overarches and recreates war scenarios. And fourth, also technology reduces people down to calculations, which means we can never fight the war because the people are used as tools to fight the war. On the perm debate. First, doing the act and the permutation it doesn't work because they say permutation security politics cannot function in the same world. Their permutation can't solve because they can't resolve their own representation. Their perm fails doesn't give enough resources or reliability time to rethink security rhetoric, and they operate in the same flawed state. Onto the root cause. First, the underlying logic of the 1AC operates with facilitates their offense in the first place. The only way to rethink security logic is the way that we come to know it by challenging the underlying assumptions of the 1AC, resolving the epistemology of the 1AC, which is the root cause as well as the app. Second, if that underlying security causes us to go to war, then our ability to solve anything is meaningless because they give access to escape their securitized logic every single time, which means they turn people into numbers and we have no value to life. Third, they're stuck in their inframing logic, which means we can never escape to be able to solve anything, which means that was their own link evidence, which means that their second advantage definitely does not solve the critique. Onto the alt. First, we examine the underlying epistemology that drives affirmative action. The epistemology and the alternative is producing the knowledge and being able to step away from the app's security logic. We do this through educational activities. Second, we present communities and experience in the slowdown in security having inevitable to get weapons in the first place, which means it turns the case because the alt is definitely not slow. We interact new change immediately. And third, the alt solves the app security logic is something that justifies arms deals and normalization of arms. And doing the alt shows us that we are able to doing the alt shows us that the alt of arms deals is a bad norm for security. The advantage can't solve their K because their own security logic that is engraved in the 1AC never challenges the rhetoric nor the knowledge or the epistemology, and especially in the case where they don't prioritize ontology, they lose over time.
correct?
Yes.